Well, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Ivory, for joining us here at the Eastman House, and particularly for the 360-365 George Eastman House Film Festival, which is a new event for us, and one that we're very, very pleased to have you kind of premiering this evening. So very much welcome to you. And I wanted to just ask maybe a couple of questions to you. I am, as curator of motion pictures, both excited about your arrival here with your new film, and at the same time, your arrival here to celebrate the donation of the Merchant Ivory archival collection here to George Eastman House. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the background of how the collection came here to Rochester.
Well, it began with Ismail, and he seemed to have a more far-ranging idea about what should be done with all of our materials, and he took the first steps. And I don't know quite how he did that, or who he began to talk to, but anyway, this was before he died, of course, in probably 2004 or even 2003, something like that. And but it was understood that all our things would come here, and and in that time, at some point, things began to be sent here from New York, basically, because we'd kept a lot of stuff in storage there at Bonded, and we had things scattered all around in all kinds of places, different labs and different post houses and so forth, and he began to kind of gather that together. And then when he died, I continued with this, and I was sort of getting kind of nervous about all this because I really didn't know where a lot of stuff was, and I was particularly nervous about the collection of stuff that we had in France because it was all in the lab, GTC, and it had been there for years, and that lab seemed to be, in the opinion of our French cameraman, Pierre Lum, who'd shot those films, that in his opinion that lab was going down, and who knows, who knew what would happen to it. It might be shut down and we'd lose everything. So I began to move stuff out of there via England, and it eventually came here. And those were our French films. Though in fact, I think you have there's a very good dupe negative of Shakespeare Walla, I think, also for some reason was in France, and it came along as well. I think it's a dupe negative, but
well, in some ways it seems
maybe
like
it's a master. But
well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting as you talk about that is that to me that's almost the nature of independent filmmaking, which is, and again, as we've talked about before, your company is an international one and was an international one from the very beginning, which means that unlike, let's say, the Hollywood motion pictures that the George Eastman House is so often associated with in terms of the kind of iconic, the Wizard of Oz negative that we have here, those were produced by studios that really did hold on. Everything happened at the studio.
Yeah.
Your company, you traveled the world from India to England to New York back. It's, I think, really exciting to think about the prescience, really, with which you looked at the collection and said, all right, where should this go? Do you think that's something that independent filmmakers are thinking about today?
Actually, I think they do think about it a lot. I think once you start to have more than, say, half a dozen movies, or even before that it could be, you're very much worried in this day of, you know, such kind of confusion between the different ways the films are shown and made and all the rest of it. People are worried about that's what they say to me. What'll I do with all this? And so I think we're not unique in that.
Well, good. I'm hoping that at least it can certainly raise some awareness from the standpoint, and maybe from the general public too, of saying, you know, film preservation, motion picture preservation hasn't been solved. That it's still an ongoing challenge.
No, far from it.
And I think that's what's exciting about being able to tell people around the world that your collection is here and that we're working with you to kind of continue further the legacy and support you in the work that you're doing, including coming today with your latest film,
right.
which is, I think, really exciting for us.
Well, that's the first film that was that didn't produce a tremendous amount of stuff that you'd have to store away because we never printed it. We went. We never printed our rushes, and we never cut on film or anything like that. And so there's not tons of stuff that you're going to get of all the outtakes and all the rest of it, because we never had any rushes, unlike all the other films.
Well, and that, I think, is a great way of looking at it, is that your collection here is almost documenting the transitions in filmmaking practice over several decades now.
I wish I had all the editing equipment that I worked on to give you, because I started out in India editing my films on moviolas at a lab, or you could call it a post-production house, but basically it's a lab called Famous Lab in Bombay. And I mean, the moviolas were so rickety and old and made such a tremendous amount of noise and all this kind of thing. And if you were lucky, then you got a newer model, and if you paid your bills, then maybe even got the newest model and an air-conditioned room. And then the first flatbeds came in, and we were with those for a long, long time, right up till the first film that we did in another way was Surviving Picasso in 1995. So, and there's all this equipment in our editing room, and moviolas and flatbeds, and the flatbeds, I don't know if they even work anymore. The moviolas probably do.
Well, this is
they were made to stand up. I don't know about the flatbed.
Well, and this museum, I mean, one of the exciting things about the collection coming here is that the museum really is unique in that it looks at film and photography from every angle, from the kind of technological angle, which is what is the equipment that we're using, what is the film stock that we're using, to the socio-cultural implications of the final product,
right.
which is, I think, why it's kind of a great natural home. Without taking too much of your time, one question I'd love to ask is, in the process of pulling together material and thinking about a new home, pulling it from different locations, have there been any surprises of things that you found that maybe you didn't either remember, or things that you were surprised to find again?
Oh,
what
sure.
would be an example of
Well, just the other day to find this print of my first film, probably the first film, Venice Theme and Variations, to find that print. I'm sure no one's projected that for 40 years, at least. And there is a pristine print, and I hope it's in some kind of shape, color-wise, that's still good. And then another one of the Delhi Way with a different narrator on it than the actual finished film. Those kinds of things that I had forgotten all about those, but just knowing I was coming here and knowing that far back in the back that some of my closets were these tins that I could see. I thought, well, I'll just pull those out and see what they are. And I mean, things like that. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, as with things in life, if you start house cleaning, you find things that amaze you sometimes. So
that definitely goes for us here in the museum as well. Well, we're really excited to have you here, and we're honored that we're going to be able to bestow upon you the George Eastman Honorary Scholar Award, which is an exciting one for us, and hopefully for you too. Do you have any thoughts and impressions maybe about the museum at this time?
Well, I was when I came in. I mean, you know that any film archive is 95% behind. I mean, you don't see it, and it's probably even underground or something. It's like the gold at Fort Knox or something. It's just away. But then I came into this wonderful state-of-the-art building and went around. I thought, well, good. This is a good place to be, and because. At one point I went out to a place where the Museum of Modern Art kept all their stuff in New Jersey, which was at Bonded also. And there were all these incredible prints and prints and prints, and for all I know, negative, of all, the greatest films ever made everywhere. And I thought, surely the Museum of Modern Art can do better than this. and they soon did. I mean, they took everything away from it. That was a sort of half indoors and half outdoor kind of place.
Right.
And so, you know, film preservation has come a long way since, and I think that must have been out there in the late 60s or something. And I tell you, it was like half indoors and half outdoors, and there were thousands and thousands of tins of film with all the greatest names and directors and everything else, not stored in a way that you would approve of.
Probably not.
And they quite soon didn't approve of it. But,
well,
so it's come a long way since then.
We're very glad to add your name to the list of the great directors that are here.
Well, thank you.
We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.